I didn't come from a military family. Nobody in my family was in the military. I just had the need to, do something that was of significance and to build my own kind of male personality in a society that valued, things like courage and honor and strength and those types of things. So about my senior year in high school, I got to be friends with the local Marine Corps recruiter who was about a block from our high school. And I actually signed up 4 months before I graduated. So I was really in the Marine Corps in March of 1964. And then I graduated high school and I went to active duty in June of '64. I wound up in aviation ordnance, which was, I went to school for 6 months in Jacksonville, Florida. When I checked into the station, I knew that the Vietnam War was starting to kick into gear. This was in mid-65. And I said, what's the next outfit going to be forward deployed to Vietnam? And they said, well, this outfit here is a photo reconnaissance squadron. They're going to be deployed probably in the early fall. So I said, put me in there. And they did. So I wound up in a photo reconnaissance squadron called Marine Corps Composite Reconnaissance Squadron 3. I was in charge of all the weapons, small arms repair, submachine guns, rifles, pistols, also for taking care of the 20mm cannons on the ECM or electrical countermeasure planes, and also the flares, the explosive flares that were used in photo reconnaissance. Mid-September, we packed up and we were carried over to San Francisco, where we caught a C-141 Starlifter, big transport jet, and flew to Okinawa. And in Okinawa, we spent about 3 weeks there, getting all of our shots, getting prepared to go into country. Then I got into Da Nang, flew into Da Nang in late September 1965. I'll never forget when the tailgate dropped on the C-130. It was like getting hit in the face with a blowtorch, wet blowtorch. My first night there, I spent on guard duty. I mean, I literally just got off the C-130 from like 15 hours of flying or something. And I got ammunition for my rifle and sent on perimeter guard. And of course, luck being it, we were supposed to get attacked at 3 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't see anything. I was in elephant grass, up to my chin. My command post was a old French bunker, surrounded by concertina wire. And naturally, in the middle of the night when we were doing a change of guard, a good friend of mine was at the CP. I couldn't find my way back through the barbed wire. There's only one course to go through. So I had, Hank, I'm lost, I can't get in. So he came through the barbed wire and led me back to the CP. I spent my first year in fixed wing for VMCJ-1. I mean, we were working 18, 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. It was just brutal. And then sometimes we'd be on perimeter guard at night. This was when Da Nang was still no man's land, right at the edge of the base. And it was pretty interesting because the infantry used to go on patrol right from the airbase, and I would see them coming in, with barbed wire holding some of their boots together. We twisted it because the rubber would separate from being in the swamps. My first tour passed fairly uneventfully. I mean, there were a few emergencies, but nothing to speak of. And I'm going, I was trained, for combat. I mean, that's what Marines do, and I really haven't seen any combat. So I knew there was a helicopter squadron near the ocean at a place called Marble Mountain. We decided that we'd ship over a second tour if we could become door gunners on helicopters. We went over to Marble Mountain, and lo and behold, first outfit I ran into was VMO-2, which was the helicopter gunships. It was pretty much the first gunship squadron in Vietnam. This was in 1966, in the late summer when I went over there, because our tour was ending in September. So I went to the first sergeant, asked to see the executive officer, and fortunately he was there and ushered me in, said, "Sir, I'll ship over another tour in Vietnam if I can come to VMO2 and as part of my duties become a door gunner, because that's what I really wanted to do, fly." And he said, "Okay." So there wasn't a billet open just then, so I went back and my squadron rotated home, and I went to a headquarters and maintenance squadron, and I drove high explosives around the base and from out in the revetments, bombs and rockets and hand grenades and bullets. And so that was my job until the billet opened up. When we were flying to a fire mission to support the infantry, we were doing gun runs into a VC-held village, and one of our external guns jammed. And the pilot left the zone, and then he said, asked me if there was anything that I could do, because I was in charge of all the weapons for the squadron. I said, "Well, sir, let me see what I can do." So we all had gunner's belts, big 4-inch leather belts on us and hooked to the bulkhead rear of the helicopter. So I grabbed one hand on my M60 gun mount, and I slid out of the helicopter onto the skid. And then I wrapped one leg around the skid and one hand on the external machine gun barrel, and this hand was on my gun mount. And with my right leg, because I was on the left side, I kicked the operating handle, which is what operates the bolt, trying to clear a round, a spent casing that was jammed in the breech. I missed it the first couple of times, but the third time I finally hit the operating handle, and it went all the way to the rear and ejected the spent casing. Well, just about that time, I hear a bang, 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 bang. I'm going, "Oh my God, we're taking fire," and I'm at 3,000 feet, holding onto the helicopter with just a leg wrapped around a skid and a hand around a gun mount. Crew chief are all looking around to see where we're taking the hits, because it was loud. And I looked to the side of the aircraft that I was on, and it was my gunner's belt flapping on the side of the helicopter. What had happened was, when you have a gunner's belt, there's a latch that goes over, and there's a locking pin that pushes down through so it can't open up. I had forgotten to push the locking pin down. And when I was sliding out of the helicopter, the latch tripped on the lip of the floor of the helicopter, and I wasn't attached at all to the helicopter. And I said, "It's okay, sir, it's just my gunner's belt." And the pilot went spastic, because he said, "Do you realize how much paperwork I have to fill out if you fall? Get your ass back in here," and blah, 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 blah. He was very agitated. And of course, I was scared to death. And so I very carefully crawled back in, put my gunner's belt on, and put the locking pin back in. And then we went back and finished the mission, and with all the weapons blazing. One of the important things that war taught me, I got to Vietnam when I was 18, and I turned 19 and 20 in country. So I was there for 22 and a half months. And one of the things that, or at least for me, was that what's this about? Is this all life is? Is this people killing each other and doing crazy stuff that just doesn't seem like it's the way that we should be as human beings? So I asked my sister and my mother to send me some books on philosophy. Here I was, a young Marine, a corporal, sitting in a tent with a candle, and then we finally got some lighting later on. And I'm reading Dialogues of Plato. I finished my second tour. I rotated back to the States, to Yuma, Arizona, where I spent my last year. I was fortunate in that they must have took pity on me from being in country for so long, and they put me in special services. And so I wound up being non-commissioned officer in charge, or NCOIC, of the base swimming pools. I got out in June, and I went around to some of the local colleges, and I went to this one college that had something called data processing. And I didn't know what it was, but I walked into this one room, and there's all this racket and all these cards. This was in the day of the 80-column card. It was very interesting, and I talked to the instructor. So I finally wound up signing up for a 2-year course, and I took to it like a duck to water. I was really burned out from going to school, working long hours, trying to create a career. And a friend of mine's, and here I still had this, philosophical thing going way in the back of my head. She happened to be a teacher of transcendental meditation. This was the Maharishi and the Beatles and all of that in the 60s. Well, I was a complete basket case, and she said, look, I don't want you to argue with me. She was like my second mother. She said, sit down, shut up, do what I tell you, and when we're done, you can ask questions. And she taught me, how to meditate, which for me was great because I was, I still had the beginnings of PTSD, and, I was still having a lot of throwback stuff to Vietnam. In 2 years, I'd saved enough money to go spend time literally, in Mallorca, Spain with the Maharishi, learning to become a teacher of meditation. I wasn't so concerned in become a teacher as I was to really understand more, about what is the depth of the human psyche, what we call the human heart, the soul. What is our purpose? Where is there a purpose? It's a refocusing of attention effortlessly from the external phenomenon to subtler layers of the mind which are more quiet. Because it's not thoughts, things, and results that are part of that internal state. It's a state of silence which has active potential but not kinetic, not in motion. And that for me was that aha moment because it made the ultimate sense. So when I was there, interesting, I met my future wife there. We've become very close, and I went back in the summer and became a lifeguard until she went on to Italy with Maharishi to do some advanced studies with him. And I finally called her and I said, look, I can't afford these phone bills. Would you please marry me? And she said yes. And so she came back a couple of weeks later. She left early. I went up to Washington, D.C., which was a good drive for me. And we got married and drove back to Las Vegas. And all was history from there in terms of getting my career started, starting our family. I have 2 lovely daughters, Colleen and Crystal. Everything is truth. There is no untruth. There's only distorted truth of varying degrees, you see? There can't be untruth in the universe. There can only be a distortion of truth. Truth is relative to what you know, what you believe, what you were taught. Each one of us has said is real for us. But that doesn't mean that this person believes it, or that person. Does that make them wrong or me right? No. Just the surface is different. The underlying basis or foundation is all the same. So that is what gave me a great deal of peace and fulfillment, in my life when I realized I wasn't at war with anyone. I wasn't at war with anyone but myself. And what my time in the military, it forced me to look at the pain, the suffering, of war, of conflict. There was something inside me that says, this can't be what life is about. It makes no sense. It's just insanity. And I found what for me, at least, was the essence of my life, my own life, and I practice being in tune or in touch with that every single day. My journey has been not to regret or doubt or whatever, but to simply say that I've always tried to become more in harmony with others, my family, and my environment over the years. Some cases I've succeeded, some not. But that's what life is. It's a journey, it's not a destination.